Welcome to Commander Center episode 128, and today we're going to be talking about a couple of free preview cards provided for us from Wizards of the Coast for Commander 2019. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
Guys, we got preview cards again.
Heck yeah.
We got them last year, we got them this year. So apparently they did not correct their mistake in bookkeeping.
Or we just took care of the problem.
There we go. Right. So it's so strange to be getting preview cards.
It's strange, but you know what? It's exciting because we're
It's
getting
really
preview
exciting.
cards, and it
Absolutely.
shows our hard work's paying off finally.
We apparently didn't frighten them away from our podcast because they hit us up again for and we got two this year.
Right? 2 cards.
So we might as well get to them. Usually we BS a little bit before we get started, but people will probably want to hear what these cards are, so let's jump into it right away. Both are reprints.
Dual lands.
And there are cards that haven't been reprinted before, so that would rule out dual lands because they were
Oh.
reprinted in beta. So that was a
Dang.
good guess. Max, what's the first card here?
The first card is Hedonist Trove. This is an enchantment for 5 black, originally printed in Dragons of Tarkir.
Yes.
It reads, when it enters the battlefield, exile all cards from target opponent's graveyard. You may play land cards exiled with Hedonist Trove, and you may cast non-land cards exiled with Hedonist Trove. You can't cast more than 1 spell this way each turn.
And Chris, what's our second card?
The second card is Grimoire of the Dead, originally printed in Innistrad as a mythic, which I'm curious to see if it's actually what it's going to be in the set. So 4 colorless for a legendary artifact. 1 colorless tap, discard a card. Put a study counter on Grimoire of the Dead. Now tap Grimoire of the Dead, remove 3 study counters from Grimoire of the Dead and sacrifice it. Put all creatures, cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. They are black zombies in addition to their other colors and types.
I did just look. It is a mythic in the set as well.
It is. Okay, cool. So first, let's take a little bit of time here and talk about Hedonist Trove. It's currently in 649 decks on EDH Rec, most of which are Gonti decks, which thematically makes sense because it lets you cast other people's stuff, and people playing Gonti kind of tend to lean into that. So we're recording this before the spoilers have really hit. Actually, we're recording this literally as the spoilers on Twitch at Gen Con are being released. So we're just going to do our guess here, but at this point in time when this airs, we should maybe know the answer a little bit better. But why do we think this is showing up in a Madness deck in particular? Because this is in the Rakdos Madness deck.
You can go first, Chris.
For me, the reason I can justify this card, because I'm not a fan of this card personally, is that Madness is a deck that plays graveyard shenanigans. So why not play shenanigans with everybody's graveyard?
That makes sense. How about you, Max? What do you think here?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. My couple thoughts would be that if it's in the pre-con, there might be cards that make your opponents discard, which feed their graveyards for this to get more fodder for. We also know there is a flashback deck, and at this point we know it is the Jeskai deck.
Yep.
So if you're just sitting down with 4 buddies playing these right out of the box, that's going to shut that deck down.
And they are designed a little bit to play against head-to-head against one another.
Yeah.
So that is a factor to a degree. Yeah, I mean, it does useful things in the deck. It can take care of graveyards, which is always good in Magic, just regardless. It gives you an opportunity to play other people's land cards, which if you've missed a land drop, that can be kind of useful sometimes too. It enables your Madness stuff a little bit if you are pitching things. Have you guys seen this card cast in a game before?
I kind of forgot it existed.
I saw somebody at a GP played it, and they actually got pretty good value out of it. I remember they cast a couple of lands from someone's deck, and on one turn cast something quite useful, and then it got blown up. And we were talking about it, and the person made the comment like, "I'm ready to pull out of my deck because for every time it comes into play and does that, there's a time when it comes into play and then someone just disenchants it. And for 7 mana, it's like if this was a 5 mana spell,
It'd be worth it.
I think it will be really, really good. I would like it a lot more, but like 7's going to suck your entire turn up, and it's going to suck up an entire turn late in the game. That's really tough. It kind of has that Dead Bridge Chant thing going on where like you hate to burn an entire turn casting a thing that might not generate much value. But it's a neat card, and I've always kind of liked it. I just think it's slightly overcosted. Are there any other decks where you think you would consider running it aside from something Madness-based?
I mean, if you're in a meta where there's a lot of graveyard shenanigan decks, your Lord Windgrace, that's the only one that can come to my head right now.
Sure.
But I mean, it shuts down Lord Windgrace. You take all their lands that they want to scape shift or
Yeah, that's true.
Ramanap Excavator back. So it's a good removal if you need graveyard removal. I mean, it's probably a monetary value, a cheap card to buy. Yeah, it's 7 mana to cast, which is a little rough, so it can't get in the game early unless you're ramping. But for a worst case scenario, this is a good graveyard hate spell.
Okay. How about Grimoire of the Dead? Let's look at that one next. That's in 1,200 decks in EDH, and it's primarily in Gisa and Geralf, which makes sense because they use things in the graveyard, so it gives you a discard outlet. So why are we thinking this one is showing up in a Madness deck? I guess obviously because it lets you discard, right?
Right.
Yeah, because you need the Madness triggers. And if you don't have something that's going to allow you to pitch cards to do the Madness, then you're just kind of sitting with a bunch of really nice cards that don't do anything.
And, there's a lot of things. At one point in time, there weren't a lot of sack outlets, for example, in the game. But, as long as they add a decent sack outlet every 2 years, well, the game's 28 years old now, there's a good amount of free sack outlets in Magic at this point in time. There's not a lot of good discard outlets, like cards that let you cheaply discard a card.
Faithful Suiting.
Well, yeah. And look how good that card is.
It is awesome.
I mean, so this is 4 mana, but it's also repeatable. Every turn it gives you a way to pitch your Madness card. Artifacts are tricky to remove. This is a card that I've looked at a bunch of times, and it's too slow to use the ability, I feel like. Like, if you're only running it hoping to remove 3 study counters from it, I don't like it. But in a Madness deck, it makes absolute sense. That 1 mana discard a card and then do your Madness thing with it is really, really good, I think. So have you guys ever seen this in a game get cast before?
I have in a mono blue control deck.
Okay.
Because it allows them to kind of stop the people from casting their creatures. You can build this up, and when the graveyards hit that threshold with a ton of creatures,
Oh, that makes sense.
you sack it, and you get all the creatures back as a win con almost.
And blue does have proliferate kind of effects.
Yep.
It would probably be really good in a deck that was also running Unwinding Clock, so you could just have the 3 counters on it really quickly, or if you had proliferate stuff, you could proliferate it up really, really quickly.
Yep. Atraxa, anything like that.
Yeah, that makes sense there too. I like this one. I like this one more than Hedonist Trove as a general use card.
Oh, for sure.
But I
Yeah.
also think this one's really, really good in that Madness deck too. So I'll be curious to see how it plays. Any other final comments here before we sign off?
For these 2 reprints in a Madness deck, it's a archetype that hasn't really gotten a lot of attention for Commander. I think this is a good start at Wizards taking a stab at giving archetypes or mechanics a deck or more cards to use in the wild to build your own deck around.
Yeah, I agree with that. Chris?
That was very well worded.
It was.
Thank you.
Mr. Max. I really don't know what to say about him. I really like the Grimoire in the deck, and I'm still just not sold on Hedonist Trove at all.
I'm basically in agreement on both of those. Well, I think if I was playing that Madness deck, unless there's some stuff in there that really makes Trove good, and it's still going to be costing 7 mana, so I don't know what that would be. I feel like it would be a card I would pull out, but I would probably leave Grimoire in there definitely.
Oh, for sure.
I have a question about Hedonist Trove.
Yeah.
If you have a way to flicker it, and you bring it back and exile a different opponent's graveyard, do you still get both? Or is it because it's a new object, you only get the most recent? Because Gonti lets you do it no matter what.
See, this is my guess on it, because Karn Liberated works similar to what I'm thinking how this would work. If one Karn exiles, say 12 cards,
Yep.
you destroy that Karn, and another Karn comes into play, you cannot restart the game using those other cards, I
Okay.
believe.
Yeah, I would guess not. There's usually has to be some specific wording that allows you to do that, and I don't think this lets you do it. Kind of like how Madomi is written, cards named Madomi the Aegis can attack. It's kind of, it would be the opposite of that. It would have to say exile with cards named Hedonist Trove, I think, and then it would work.
Well, because this card is a reprint, I just looked it up.
Oh, sure.
Because, the internet.
Right, there we go.
You guys are right. If it were to leave the battlefield, any cards exiled remain exiled. Those can no longer be played. Any future instances of Hedonist Trove, even one represented by the same card, will be a new object and won't allow you to play those cards.
Excellent. There we go.
Thank you,
Question
Scryfall.
answered. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Wizards, for those free preview cards. We do appreciate it. It's a big deal. It feels
Oh, yeah.
really, really good to be able to be given those by the company that makes the game we like so much. So thank you very much for that. We do appreciate it. And thank you, listeners, for listening to our preview cards. Exciting to have you share in this with us as well.
Yeah.
So thanks very much for your time. What we'll do here before we sign off, Max, is wrap up a few of these contests we have
Starting.
that are starting this month.
Yes. So as we announced on Monday's show on that deck tech, for Patreon this month, we are giving away a Lord Windgrace altar plus the original Lord Windgrace card. Those are for our Patreon supporters. So if you continue to support us, especially with our new reward system in place, or if you just sign up by the end of August, you'll be entered to win those. And for Twitter, we are giving away a signed copy by Mark Poole of the Legends card Great Defender.
Nice.
Yeah.
So for your Arcades
Sabbath deck.
your Arcades the Great, what is he? The
Strategist.
The
That
great
one too.
strategist. There we go.
Or Doran. Let's just go to the
There we
one
go.
everybody knows.
Yes, there we go.
Arcades is better.
Oh, for sure.
You guys had both talked about building Arcades decks, and no one ever.
Oh, I did.
Did you build one?
Yeah, for 1v1, and then I threw it into the trash.
Did that get blown up the same weekend of your modern deck?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for listening to the show. Our podcast theme is Retro Feud or Dirty by Kevin MacLeod, licensed via Creative Commons. Our show is edited by Ken Peddle. You can find him on Twitter at LOAD3R. You can find me on Twitter at Dana Roach. You can find Max at CMDR_Max. You can find Chris at WiseSquishy1. We'll be back next week with another show. Until then, I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.